Oof, my heart is so heavy this morning. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Soft Rebellion. My name is Intat and thank you so much for joining me. So I haven't been okay since yesterday. So it just feels like I'm going through the most every day lately. But as I missed yesterday and I see how a big part of it is still weighing heavily on me today. My dog is sick and the vet is suspecting neurological issues. They don't even know how to help. I feel so helpless because they've put him on some medication to manage stress, and he's overwhelmed, obviously. But that's basically it. It's just some mild sedative to help him calm down a little bit. But the symptoms are still there. I took him to the vet on Saturday, and on Sunday, unfortunately, I'd gone to a race, so I asked a friend of mine to come take him outside for a walk when he wakes up, and to also poop and pee, and then feed him before I come back home. When she texted me during the race, she said, "Oh, he's circling." I didn't think anything of it because obviously he normally circles just before he pees or poops. But he was doing it more frequently and for no reason at all. I also noticed it then on Monday in the morning. He also wasn't attentive, so when I call his name, he's not responsive. He seems confused and disoriented. I just thought he was being cheeky because he had woken up very early in the morning. I ended up carrying him. Then on Tuesday, he was circling so much and the circles went out tighter and faster. He lost balance and he fell. And that's when I got so worried because I'm like, this is not normal. And then I paid close attention to his eyes and they were flickering. They were moving left, right, so quickly. And I think that's why he didn't have balance then, because his eyes just can't focus. I tried for him to look at me, and that's why he also can't pay attention to me. I messaged the vet immediately, took a video, and they're saying no, it's neurological. My suspicion is that it's toxicity of the tick and flea tablet they gave him. It does list neurological side effects as one of the possible side effects. They just don't detail what it is. But when I Googled, they mentioned the circling thing and the flickering eyes. But obviously the vet probably doesn't want to be liable. So they said, no, that's not one of the symptoms. Only if he's got seizures or tremors should I then rush him to the hospital. Anyway, that's what's happening. And I've been a mess. I haven't been okay because I can't lose a dog, guys. I've lost a dog before. And I know how horrible that is. I just can't go through that. And I mean, there's stuff that I'm dealing with professionally, which is really hard. But I'm managing it so well because in part I have to focus on Bobby, He's literally my entire life, guys. He's my entire personality. He makes me so happy. And focusing on him actually diverts my attention from catastrophizing the challenges I'm currently experiencing professionally. And it's allowing me to find, joy and therefore pay attention to the parts of my life that bring me joy, as opposed to being miserable. Because when you work for yourself, literally, your work is your entire life. And if work is not going well, you're not doing well personally. But Bobby has allowed me the distinction between my personal life and my private life, my professional life. And now, if he were to pass on, I have no idea, I'm going to die, And my mind went there because a couple of years ago, I lost Bruno and I could barely function. And it's even worse because the vet doesn't know what to do. They're just telling me to monitor the situation. And I'm like, are you guys mad? Do something. But there's nothing they can do. And I realized I could potentially lose him, or I could deal with the situation where he suffers permanent brain damage because whatever is happening in his brain is making him act this way. He's not able to focus because his brain is affected in some shape or form. They aren't able to pinpoint the cause. Unless we take him for an MRI, even then it may come back clear. That's what the doctor said. They may perform all these blood tests and MRI scans that are very expensive, but they might still not know what is happening. The best course right now is just to observe him for the next 24 to 48 hours. If the issue progresses, then we'll have to do all those tests. Otherwise, they're hopeful it's gonna, get better and eventually disappear on its own. At best, 2 weeks. In other cases, it does remain the same. So I might have a situation where my baby isn't responding to me anymore, or he isn't as energetic as he used to be anymore. That's the potential risk I have to deal with it. And it occurred to me that, hey, I think heartbreak is a side effect of loving, because I love this boy. Guys, within such a short space of time, he's just occupied such a big, place in my heart. And I can't even imagine life without him, But now I have to grapple with the fact that he might potentially die, And I suppose I've had those fears from way back. It's so unfortunate that on Saturday I was celebrating, and I was just excited over the fact that he was getting his last shot, which meant it's safe now to go to a dog park, to take him to a puppy school for training and socializing with other dogs. And I was really relieved because for a very long time I would be so scared every time I took him outside, and we played on the grass and everything. Yes, it was dangerous, but I really wanted to get his schedule under control. And so I always had that fear because I'm like, what if he contracts some disease or infection? There was an outbreak sometime last year. So when we're in Cape Town, I was even more frightened. But he survived all of that. That's just the risk. But I realized, I think being in constant fear in some shape or form or degree comes with parenting, even if it's a pet in my case. But there is a level of fear, When I go run, I worry. I remember on Sunday, instead of actually running, I had to step on the side of the road and make a call to Noni to find out if Bobby had gone out to pee and if he had eaten and everything, because she hadn't given me confirmation yet. I wasn't even able to focus on the race. Until I got confirmation, then I could be present and actually enjoy the race. So I think that's just the default state when you are responsible for someone, and the love you feel for them and the joy they bring you is worth all of that, is worth all of that pain. And I suppose I liken that to a pursuit of a relationship, in some shape or form. Recently, Sana, there's just been interesting encounters, right, with men. I think, by the way, I'm done searching for the potential love of my life because I don't think men are worth it. I think I'm going to go into a men-hating spree or whatever. I just don't think it's worth it anymore. The heartbreak you experience and the disappointment and whatnot, it's just not worth it. I can't say I've gotten to a stage where, the potential disadvantages of being in a relationship or pursuing one are less than the benefit. I haven't seen any benefit. But what I've realized is that men are just not okay. I mean, we aren't okay as well, right? But for the longest time, men are obviously been portrayed as these strong people who are providers and heads of families and households and visionaries and stuff. And the more I interact with men, the more I realize that actually that might not necessarily be the case. Now, this isn't to say that all men are like that, but I'm realizing men are broken because just recently someone who had kind of been pursuing me for a very long time. It wasn't like a deliberate pursuit, if you will. It was more, flirting and then throwing the idea of us dating and stuff. But I never took it seriously because what do you mean you're going to ask me out on Instagram? You know what I mean? And never come out and say it. But he's wanted a relationship with me. And he asked me like a couple of months ago. But I was like, dude, this is not going to happen unless you make it formal. You put it on a plate at a restaurant somewhere, I don't know, a plate of dessert, and buy flowers and make a big deal about it. I'm not going to take you seriously, Also, this is something I would have waited for so long for. It couldn't just happen over the phone or I don't know, over a conversation. Like, I needed something big to market. And I think a big part of it was for him to realize the gravity of what he was asking me and take it with as much seriousness as it deserved. And the other part was for me to start believing it as well, because men say all sorts of things that they don't mean because it's a heat of the moment, or they think it's cool, or whatever the case is, So eventually, I see him at the race on Sunday, and then he comes. He wanted to see me later after I had slept, and then he comes over and we talk. We talk about, what it is he wants, what it is I want. Like, it was a very lengthy discussion, and I remember getting so emotional after that conversation, and it was like, dude, this is serious. This is not something that I kid about. And then he asked me, and I told him to ask me again, like, because I'm like, ask me. Because there's no ways I'm still like, you're going to ask me to be your girlfriend, just, you know what I mean? Like, ask it, feel it in your tongue, feel how it feels, and see if this is something that you really want. And I promise you, the following day, he starts acting different. And I'm like, something is not okay here, and I start journaling about it. Know that when I'm journaling about something, I've got big feelings about it, and I'm trying to reconcile, and I definitely will. Like, when I journal about something, I'm letting it go, literally. And that was the conversation I was having with myself. Like, dude, I think, like, I'm trying not to share too much, but at the same time, I'm like, what can I share? Like, I'm making that editorial decision as I'm telling the story. But I remember one of the interesting things to learn about him was that he shares the same birthday as Barbie. That got me, I'm not going to lie. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I started to think about what that would look like when I'm celebrating their birthdays, So, but the following day, I just knew. I was like, this doesn't behave like someone who wants to be in a relationship, And I remember not telling anyone and not, hyping this entire thing up or whatever. There's a friend of mine who's staying with me currently, and she was asking me questions about him. And I'm like, dude, I'm not even going to make this a thing. I want to observe someone's actions and see if they are telling the same story that he's professing with his mouth, right? Because oftentimes with men, there's a difference between their actions and their words. And so I've fallen victim to trusting someone's words over their actions. So I wanted this to be different. Like, I was very lucid about it and logical. And their actions the following day just didn't tally to what they were saying or that what they'd said the day before. And so I thought, no. Then the following morning, I got a breakup text, guys. And he's like, no, I think I rushed things. I hadn't thought it through and whatnot. And I just said, okay. Like, I was like, okay. And I kept it moving. Because, again, I'd reconciled with it and I'd seen it coming from afar. And that's what happens when you look at things objectively, and you don't romanticize it. I like to romanticize potential relationship situation, in part because I'm a storyteller, and I'm a romantic at heart, right? But the other part, because I just like creating excitement around my life and around everything. But this time around, I was like, let's see, let's see how someone acts. And this was a clear picture of that. Like, and I think the lesson there, which brings me to the story about Barbie, is it sucked, like I'm not going to lie and say because I could see it from a distance, it didn't suck. It sucked because, hey, I saw so much alignment with this guy. Our value systems are similar, He's a catch. He's a beautiful man, gorgeous eyes, super tall, and he works really, really hard. I love that he comes from humble beginnings, and we share some of, similarities in our upbringing. And the fact that he's deliberate about, shaping the kind of person he is in therapy, seeing someone, and that tells me he cares about the type of person he grows up to be. Yes, he could have managed this whole situation a bit better, but it doesn't take away from his potential, and the potential that I saw as well. And not potential in the sense that someone is still coming up and there could be something great, but I think in terms of investing in being a quality human, not just professionally or in terms of generating money and wealth, which men tend to obsess over compared to their inner life. So this one was actually, doing a lot of work in their inner life to be a person that they are content with and that they're happy to be around. But I realized, man, loving someone or opening yourself up to loving someone is also opening yourself up to hurt. Like, they two coexist no matter what. And this could be with family, with friends, with anything. If you open yourself up to someone, you're opening yourself up to disappointment. You're opening yourself up to potential hurt, and a whole lot of other negative feelings and emotions that we experience. Now, in our society, because we don't like conflict or friction of any kind, really, we isolate ourselves because it seems easier. Like, friends are snitches nowadays, or they're not loyal, or whatever the situation is. So we just cut out that part of our lives. Men are liars and they cheat and whatnot. Perhaps men could say the same about women. I wouldn't know because I don't date women. I've never dated women. But that's the nature of relationships nowadays. And so people cut out that aspect from their lives as well. Instead, they pursue very casual things, right? But casual hookups just doesn't hit the same. Like, I was thinking about this. I think part of the reason why I've been, intentional about cultivating a romantic relationship is because I really want an in-depth human experience. Now, yes, I think it is broad, but it's not as intense as it could be. Like, I've got really quality friendships with my people, quality relationships with my people. But I think about exploring myself and someone else, not just physically, but emotionally as well. The stuff people are scared to talk about, to admit. You can do that to your partner, ideally, right? And just exist fully. I'm curious about what that looks like. I wonder what any of that looks like, and to be able to have that human experience. That's something that I really, really want. There's a saying that says, if you wanna go fast, go alone, and if you wanna go further, go with someone. And I think about that, and I liken that example to being in a intimate relationship with someone where you just explore the depth of the human condition. And that's the vision I've got, to be quite honest. But opening yourself up to that level, to that depth, is so dangerous, because it also opens you up for potential hurt that is just as depth, that is just as intense. You know what I mean? That's the risky side, the saying high risk, high reward type of situation. And I see that in opening yourself up to loving people, life of any kind, And I did think that it's worth it. And I think to some level it is. But right now, I just don't know if I can continue in the trajectory that I've been, because I'm noticing a pattern with men, and it's so discouraging, guys. Like, I don't know, the level of brokenness I'm seeing is really alarming. And I see so much resentment towards women as well. Like, men rather, can articulate very well the power dynamics as it relates to race. But in terms of sex, there's almost a blindness that exists, which they aren't willing to admit, the extent to which men themselves are liable for their own suffering. How the patriarchal systems also reinforce some of the pain that they are experiencing. But instead, that pain is channeled as anger towards women. And so I couldn't in good conscience be in a romantic relationship with a man who was so angry at women as a group, because I do fall within that group myself. And I think because I would be in such a close, intimate, deep relationship with them, somehow that would translate to expressing some of that anger on me or towards me. And it wouldn't necessarily be in terms of exerting physical violence, right? There's many ways in which people can cause harm or hurt to one another. And I suspect that is the potential dynamic that could exist in a relationship. So yeah, that's really been disheartening to hear, and that's what informs my decision about taking a pause on this. I don't know for how long, indefinitely. But yeah, I really just wanted to highlight that when you love someone or when you love life, you will also be very much deeply hurt by life, or deeply hurt and disappointed by that someone, because they two unfortunately coexist. But obviously intention matters, right? Like if someone deliberately intends to cause harm, then I don't know if that's love. I don't know if love exists there. But there is, the other side of loving and caring for someone where you'll be hurt. I think another interesting observation I've made this week, though, is how people who grew up in a, I don't want to say healthy environment, but people whose feelings were acknowledged from childhood, who grew up knowing that they're important, knowing that they matter, find it so easy to ask for help. Like I was thinking as I was going through this with Barbie and through the things at work as well, I'm like, there hasn't been a point where I reached out to someone and asked for help. And if there is, I've had to beat myself up about it so much before I could reach out to someone and say, hey, I need help with 1, 2, 3. Like I've carried whatever responsibility, whatever burden or challenge all by myself. And Jem, it really is unnecessary, because I do have people in my life who are more than willing to chip in when necessary. But I just find it so hard. And it's almost as if it's such a threat to my own sense of importance. Like, I don't know, to my own existence. Sense of worth, I think. I don't know what it is, but like it just rocks me to the core when I have to ask for help. Whereas the person I've observed has been doing so freely. And I think their default setting is that people will come to their aid. And people have come to her aid. And it's just been so interesting to observe, because I'm like, where do you get the audacity to do that? To communicate your feelings in real time as you're hurting. You let others into your world. Like you tell them that, hey, I'm not okay. I'm hurting. I need help. I need 1, 2, 3. And to still be able to receive it. You know what I mean? Like, I think when I ask for help, I will try to be as inconvenient as possible. Like, as much as possible, I think about when people have housed me in their own houses, for instance. I will make sure that I'm useful in one way or another. Like, if I'm not cleaning or cooking or whatever, like, I tried my utmost best to be the most, helpful guest, And I see this as an extension of how I show up in my relationships as well. Like, in my friendships, I always want to add value. Like, I always want to be useful. So that I feel like, okay, my friends, don't see me as a burden. They don't see me as someone who's just extracting from them. But even at my lowest, I'm still useful. I'm still someone worth keeping around. Like, and it's such a shame. Like, it is such a shame, because I think we're worth love. We're worth being taken care of and supported at our worst without showing up in a particular way, And I don't think I know how to do that. I've seen it with another friend of mine. Like, she just receives with so much ease. Like, this friend, guys, like, her default setting, like, it boggles my mind, because how do you do that? And I think a part of me is so jealous and almost envious of that, because how do you move through the world in your softness? Like, when a friend is like in her soft girl era, even in your guys' friendship, she just receives love and doesn't question it, or doesn't like, I don't know how to explain. I hope this makes sense, but it's something I've been observing so much, and I am envious, about that. And I wish I could get to a place where I don't question it. And when I feel sad, I can express that without feeling like I need to still be the helpful friend, that I need to not be as burdensome to my friends. And if I am, then there must be something I should do to almost buffer, that burden. I don't know. That's where I'm feeling today. Yeah, that's where I'm feeling. Those are some of the thoughts that are going on through my mind. But yeah, I'm not okay because of my dog. And obviously these other things that are happening around me, I see a common thread. I was trying to trace this common thread across and share some of the lessons I've drawn, in all these various experiences. But I hope you guys can find value in them. I do want to encourage you to seek help if you're not okay, Rely on the people around you, even if it's hard for me to do so. I had a call with my friend this morning, and I was like fighting so hard not to cry because I'm really worried about my dog. And I was saying to me, oh, Baby, you're so lucky to have you, because I really care, and I'm so observant. I had to. And yeah, that's another thing I was thinking about. Like, being an absent parent, like, I know I couldn't be a parent right now because the level of attention I'm paying to Barbie is so intense. And it'd probably be 10 times, 100 times worse with a human baby, because they're just so helpless. At least Barbie has a level of independence. Not now, obviously, because I'm not allowed to leave him. I just have to observe him all the time. But that level of care and attention to his mannerisms, his behaviors, his habits is so necessary, because that's what clued me into the fact that he's wrong, or something is wrong. Otherwise, I could have easily missed it, and we could have gone on without him getting the help that he needs. Never mind the fact that vets don't know how to help him. But I would have continued on our normal schedule, taking him outside for walks and being upset when he's not listening, as if he's being cheeky. Bobby is cheeky in general, but it's never been to this extent. Like, when he decides to ignore me, he's gonna turn his head to acknowledge the fact that I am calling him and he's hearing me, but he will proceed to do whatever he was doing, or like walk the opposite direction. Or if I tell him to leave something, he will look at me and then pick the thing and run. In which case, I know he knows what the command is, but he just chooses to be disobedient. You know what I mean? Because he's got a mind of his own. That's the cheekiness I'm talking about. But in this regard, like, I would call him and then he would be confused or go the opposite direction and then just start circling because he just doesn't know which direction to go. If I wasn't as observant or attentive to his mannerisms, I would have missed that, and so it boggles my mind how people could be parents without wanting to pay that level of attention to detail, on their kids, and therefore be able to cater to their needs. Because another thing about Bobby, as much as he's cheeky, I know when he's tired or overstimulated, he can't put himself to rest, He's just going to continue biting and like walking around the house and whatnot under normal circumstances, even when he's tired and whine. But I need to put him in a confined space. Yes, he will also like eat his playpen and tear it up and try and escape because it just hates the confinement. But that's the only thing that settles him, that calms him, and that allows him to rest and sleep. Because he needs sleep, he needs rest. So I've had to exercise a balance between allowing him to be his, cheeky self and explore and smell plants and like sniff around, and also be strict when I'm required to, because he needs rest, he needs to sleep, he needs a break from being stimulated and is tired. So I can't give him all these other things that will stimulate him, even though I'm a people pleaser and I'd love to give him everything he wants. But certain times I have to be strict, and I have to remove all these factors that cause stimulation and therefore him to misbehave. I wouldn't have been able to make those distinctions if I wasn't a present parent and if I wasn't attentive to his needs. And so I wonder then how people can be in relationships of any sort where they don't pay attention to, someone, or where they say, I don't know how to support you, or like, tell me how to best support you. Like, I think those things you learn by observing someone, by being attentive, and Bobby has taught me that. Other relationships in my life have taught me that as well. And I think about parental kid relationships as well. Parents would have known how to be better parents by observing their kids and learning their mannerisms and what they respond to and what they need. Like, you learn the different kinds of cries and whines and whatnot. Sometimes you ignore because he's just protesting or like trying to test his boundaries and see if you're okay, if you know what I mean. But you just need to stay resolute and teach him that, hey, you're not going to get everything because you're crying, But yeah, that's just the nature of relationships. And that's why being present and being attentive is so important. And I think this applies to any kind of relationship. But obviously, because I've just been reflecting a lot on how I grew up and some of the relationships I've had with the adults in my family, like my mom, my grandparents, and that sort of thing, has been so important in making these realizations, And I think this is something that would apply even in a relationship context, to say, in order to be a great partner, you'd need to be attentive and present and pay attention to your person's mannerisms, what they respond to, what they don't respond to, what they like and what they don't like, and be able to cater to those needs. But yeah, we just don't do that level of depth anymore because it's not easy. Like, we're so surface level in how we approach relationships, and I'm seeing that. Like, I'm seeing how so another realization was that men actually want someone who's feminine. I've spoken about this in the previous episode where someone said I was feminine, and I did see that as a compliment. But actually, to men, they don't usually see me as feminine. They just see me as, you're serious, you like to discuss these serious things and in depth and whatnot. And that's part of the reason why I liked this other guy. I mean, it wasn't deep or anything like that, right? Because we just started talking again recently after having gone no contact for a while. But he had depth, and he liked having these kind of conversations. But I do see how previous encounters have also left a mark And he was still reconciling with that. So there's a lot of confusion on his part in how he wants to proceed. But being attentive like that and just deep diving and paying that level of detail and extra care is something that I expect in a relationship, because I think it deepens that emotional connection, right? But it also informs how you're then able to better support your partner to be present in the relationship and cultivate something that you're both safe and secure and comfortable in, right? But men also see that as work, and it's like, it's exhausting. I just want to talk about nails and tell me about your cute day, in pink braids and this nice restaurant that you want to see. But that's not always possible. And I think, yes, those conversations can happen, but they can only happen because you also do the deep work. Like, I remember Bobby and I play and, chase each other on the grass because I've met his needs. Like, all his needs are met. His basic needs are met. He's been fed, he's pooped, he's peed, he's drank some water, he's washed, he's cleaned. I've brushed his teeth, wiped his ears. I don't know how to chop his nails yet. But basically all his basic needs are met. And so he's able to then be present for the play and without pain, without any complaints whatsoever. But it's almost as if as a society, because everything has become so convenient, we think human interactions also need to be convenient. And that's the opposite of what it means to exist in community, to exist within, a group of people. Even in friendship, like being in friendship requires a level of inconvenience. Like, you have to be okay with being inconvenienced. I think I've spoken about this as well. Like, it just feels like I'm repeating myself because I see these lessons over and over and over again. But I'm also observing the fact that young people are just not prepared to be inconvenienced. They want the benefit of a relationship, but without the disadvantages of it, without being inconvenienced. Like, we want the nice, beautiful, epic love without the risk of being hurt. We want everything to be rosy without putting ourselves out there, which means someone could potentially cause us harm, But that's impractical. The two do not exist in isolation. They coexist. And when you make the risk to love someone, you're also acknowledging that, hey, this person has the power to ruin me. And that's the realization I've made. And I think, I'm just not prepared to make that commitment now, because I don't think the men I've met are prepared to make those trade-offs, until a time where I find someone who's prepared to risk on the same level that I am, if not greater, then I'm better off alone, you know what I mean? Because otherwise I'm just in a one-sided relationship, or someone sees me as a potential threat, or they see my empowerment as a woman as having stolen from what was theirs. One of the guys I met recently had such an issue with women empowerment. He's like, are you one of those feminists? This is a story for another day. I laugh now, but I was so concerned. And I'm like, this is becoming like a red pill type content that is just dressed in men's empowerment, because he told me about this foundation he wanted to start, and was sharing a proposal with me about, this men's mental health foundation that he wants to start because men are struggling emotionally. And I thought, that's such a beautiful idea. Oftentimes I meet men who complain about men suffering only when women's issues are being brought up, especially the issue around gender-based violence and femicide. And they always use the fact that men die because of suicide as a counter argument to why we need interventions for gender-based violence, which predominantly or disproportionately affect women. So this one started off differently, and I was really impressed. But the more I probed or I got to listen, I was like, no, man, this guy's angry at me, and he doesn't even know. Like, I think he was so resentful about the fact that I'm feminist, but also like I've been a beneficiary of the women's empowerment like movement. You know what I mean? And I was like, dude, you are definitely hurt and you need healing. And I'm sorry that you're going through this, but I'm not responsible for it, because he was distorting facts to suit the narrative that he had decided, There was no sense of accountability whatsoever in how men have contributed to his suffering. And so I just thought, yeah, no, I can't do this. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Anyway, I'm going into another topic altogether, but I'll explore it another day. But yeah, guys, do take care of yourselves. Reach out to your people, ask for help, and don't feel guilty about asking for help. And I'm saying this in part to myself because I haven't taken my own advice. But luckily, there are friends who are proactive, and I feel so grateful that, I've got them and they can listen to me cry about my dog. That I'm very stressed about, but in Jesus' name, he's gonna be healed. I've got faith that he will recover, and he can be back to his normal hyper, cheeky self, But yeah, that's all I wanted to say today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I do hope to see you on the next episode. Bye.